Over the years, major storms and flooding have taken far too big a toll in California, resulting in the loss of life, property, and infrastructure. Winter floodwaters have proven their ability to overwhelm our flood control system. A combination of recent factors has put public safety and the state's financial stability at risk when major winter storms arrive. California's population growth continues to fuel rapid development in areas that are historically susceptible to flooding. Development in the floodplain increases the potential for flood damage to homes and businesses. As California's flood control system ages, the risk to communities built in the floodplain also increases. Many levees that protect communities were built from materials excavated from rivers, on foundations that are subject to seepage and movement. Several other factors also contribute to levee deterioration. They include the removal of natural berms for land development, erosion, boils created by burrowing animals, earthquakes, and the natural settling of levees. As at-risk levees are identified and remedial maintenance is performed, unpredictable failures can still occur with little warning on an outwardly healthy levee. The recent levee failure on Upper Jones Tract is a good example. Thought to be in good repair, the levee failed on a mild spring morning in 2004. The emergency response, the damage to private property, loss of crop revenue, break site repair, and the pumping out of Jones Tract will cost more than $100 million. Also in jeopardy was the state's water supply. As the 12,000-acre Jones Tract filled with water, a vacuum was created, drawing seawater into the delta from San Francisco Bay. State and federal pumps were shut down for several days to prevent seawater intrusion from compromising delta water quality. To repel the inflow of salinity, the release of precious upstream reserves had to be temporarily increased. Although steps to protect the state's water supply were successful, long-term protections depend on solving delta water issues. At a time when improvement efforts and maintenance should increase, the investment in flood management has been reduced at all levels of government. Two constitutional amendments have severely restricted local government's ability to generate and use property tax revenue for flood protection. The state's recent fiscal constraints have decreased general fund allocations available for flood maintenance, improvements, and management. Although funding has been reduced for flood protection activities, the high cost of additional flood protection still remains. The state's recent fiscal constraints have decreased general fund allocations available for flood maintenance, improvements, and management. Although funding has been reduced for flood protection activities, the high cost of additional flood protection still remains. With levee repair estimates now at about $5,000 per linear foot, the cost to repair known erosion sites will require hundreds of millions of dollars. And the price tag for this work will only increase as more stringent levee safety criteria is deemed necessary to prevent additional failures. While the risk of levee failure and its catastrophic results increase, California courts have ruled that the state has extraordinary financial liability for flood damages. When a Northern California levee failed in 1986, hundreds of homes and businesses, including a shopping center in the city of Linda, were flooded. In a subsequent lawsuit, known as the Paterno case, the court determined that when a public entity operates a flood control system built by someone else, it accepts the liability as if it had planned and built the system itself. Although local agricultural interests constructed the Linda levee in 1930, the state was held liable for damages. The Paterno decision makes it likely that the state will ultimately be held responsible for the structural integrity of over 1,600 miles of levees that protect more than 500,000 people, over 2 million acres of cultivated land, and approximately 200,000 structures, with an estimated value of $47 billion. Because the potential impacts of a failure or multiple failures are catastrophic, state and local agencies must work together to improve flood protection for Californians living and working in the floodplain. Although California strives to provide the highest public safety programs in the nation, the legal liability and the consequences of ill-advised land use decisions need to be carefully assessed for those that build in the floodplain. Along with sound flood management practices, a significant commitment of human and financial resources will be required. Specific recommendations have been developed to provide the framework for future action. These recommendations will help fund and improve the state's flood control system to better protect the lives and property of our citizens. It will also protect California taxpayers from unreasonable liability and great financial loss when the next levee failure occurs. Unless California implements a strategic plan soon, the next major flood event could easily overwhelm the state's deteriorating flood protection system and have catastrophic consequences for our people, property, and environment. Now is the time for action to protect people, communities, and the state's economy.